Hey there, everyone. Mark Edwards here, along with our whole crew. And tonight we are recording our first ever mock draft, something a little different this year to have a little bit of fun. So I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. With the Islanders' first pick is J. Brad. Go ahead.
Well, with the first pick in the draft, the New York Islanders are going to select Matthew Schaefer, defenseman from the Erie Otters. To me, this is a no-brainer, slam dunk. I've been watching Matthew Schaefer for years, back to his U16 days in Alton. To me, quite obvious first pick. When I was at the Prospects game, I had mentioned to the person sitting next to me, my dad, who asked, "Hey, which guy's this Schaefer guy?" And I didn't tell him a number. I just said, "You're going to know exactly who he is when he steps out on the ice." 5 minutes later, he turned to me. I know who he is. So, big Matthew Schaefer fan myself. And I'll let the other guys take over if anybody has anything else to say on him.
Good pick, J. Brad.
I know, I had so many forward, but yeah, I think it stood
up. I'll throw in a little 2 cents. I think he is a special player. I think he's one of the best first overalls in quite a while. To me, the very first time I laid eyes on him was still in his minor midget years, so leading up to the OHL draft. And I saw these little flashes of Cale Makar-like play. I don't like making those, NHL comparables too often. I think every player is his own player, but I do once in a while to say little things that remind me. This year I said vibe, so he gave me a little bit of a Makar vibe. Just the way he constantly drove play, constantly joined the rush, created offense himself. He wasn't a player that you noticed every game. He was a player you noticed every shift.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know if we have to talk too much about Schaefer. He's been pretty much our number one guy since November. So pretty good pick, J. Brad. I know you worked really hard over this one, but good pick.
Headaches. I had headaches for days thinking about who I was going to pick when I won the lottery, the Hockey Prospect Lottery. So.
All right. Well, San Jose is now on the clock, and making that pick in our little draft is Christian, our USA scout.
Yeah. For San Jose, I'm taking Misa. I think you could probably say he's the best player left, and for San Jose, you're just going to be really strong up the middle. You got Celebrini, now you have Misa, and you still have Will Smith too. So there might be some question marks of, does Smith go to wing? Does Misa go to wing? You can figure that out down the road, but everyone knows that the teams that are strong down the middle win, and San Jose now you have probably the best up and coming center depth in the league with that pick. I think you can consider Frundell. I think the reason I say that is that just his shot, and you got Smith and Celebrini, who are just both very good passers and playmakers and can make plays with the puck. You get a guy like that can finish. I think you can consider that, but I think Misa is just safer. You get a guy with no weaknesses. He's smart. He can skate. He's skilled. He could drive his own line, and you could just you could build around, you have one line where Celebrini, you can attack with 2 lines, Celebrini and Misa. So I think with San Jose, you don't have to overthink it too much. You can just take Misa, and you're happy, and you got a safe player.
All right. Anybody else got anything to add to that?
Yeah, there was a distinction here. Like, everybody talks about tier ranges. I've seen a lot of people publicly discussing how Misa should be in a similar range to Schaefer. We don't see that. We see this as the next range down. So Schaefer's kind of his own category there. Misa's a fantastic player, though. But there is, for us, a gap.
Yeah, I think they are in, if you count both of them, they are a tier against the next grouping. But I do think, as we've had it all year, we didn't have much choice or not much difficulty choosing our number one. All right. So the next person on the clock is Brad, and he is making the selection for the Chicago Blackhawks at number 3 overall.
Okay, so I know that there's a consensus. They need to get bigger. They need to get way stronger. That's fair. And so Anton Frondell makes the most sense. But I also see a lot of unicorns in Chicago's system. And the one weakness Frondell has is speed. And this team that they're building seems to be extremely fast. You look at Oliver Moore, you look at Frank Nazar, Sam Renzel. They're all very, very quick players. Lucas Reichel. So I'm going to go off the board here. I think this is where things get crazy. It gets crazy early. BP out the window. We're going Roger McQueen. He's the biggest center in the draft. He's massive, fast, plays a down low game. It's something they don't have. They have shot quality. Nick Lardis is in their system. Bedard's there. They have a ton of very good shooters. So I'm thinking they go a bit off the board here because for the nucleus of what they're trying to build, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, definitely they are not following hockeyprospects.com list. Yeah, but I agree with Brad. I think the Chicago third pick is a bit of
it's a wild card.
Yeah, it's a bit of the wild card pick here, which is obviously probably would not be our pick, but we know McQueen is viewed pretty high up by some teams, so I could see this happen. That would I think surprise a lot of people at the draft if this happens. So but I could see I still could see it. I agree with Brad. They do like guys that can really skate, and that's a bit of the weakness for Frondell. Desnoyers, same thing.
Martin, same thing.
Yeah. So if we're basing this on this, I think that could make a bit of a sense here with McQueen at number 3.
All right. Next team on the clock is Utah with their fancy new unis that I love and the logo. And Jerome is making this pick for Utah.
Okay, well, I was not ready to have Frondell available at 4 here for Utah. Brady Martin sounds very like a classic Utah/Arizona pick. So I'm gonna go, and I think Jake O'Brien could make a lot of sense here. That would be a nice 1-2 punch down the middle with Logan Cooley. So it's pretty close for me, but I'll go with Anton Frondell here. I think Arizona. Utah will be pretty excited to get, good size center behind Cooley, which will be, I think, necessary for, if you want to build like a real team for the playoff. I think, Cooley's a bit undersized, so you need a guy with a bit more size down the middle, and Cooley's more of a playmaker. So on the power play, you could have like a good 1-2 punch with Cooley setting up Frondell on a power play, and then you add Dylan Gunters to that. So I think it makes sense here. So I'm going with Frondell here for Utah.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in?
I was hoping he'd go drop one more. I heard you talk about the other guys, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Come on, Jerome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was the Jerome tease. I'm interested to see what pick they make. If I were to throw a pick in that maybe people don't expect, and I'm not, saying high probability, but it wouldn't shock me, it is O'Brien. For some reason, that's just nagging at me that could be the guy. But I think they're another tough one to decide what they're going to do, and they might even trade the pick, which we're not going to get into today of speculating that this pick will be traded and do all that jazz. We'll just go through the order here. Anyway, the next team on the clock is Nashville, and we go back to Jay Brad. By the way, I'm just hosting this. I'm not making any selections tonight.
So I got a lot of my Nashville guys left. As we talked about, the tiers are start getting a little more open now. But I'm going to go with Porter Martone for Nashville. He just got back from the World Championships. Andrew Burnett was assistant coach there. Barry Trotz talked about hitting home runs with his draft picks. If you look at previous Nashville picks, I think there's a little bit of punch to him, and I think Martin brings that at this point. It was really, really tempting to take Brady Martin. I had him pegged in to Utah, but I think with Nashville, I think they move a little to the wing this draft for their first pick, if this is how it shakes out, and I think Martin's the guy out of Brampton.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Sure. The one thing that's interesting about Nashville is that they really do need center depth, right? But Martin makes a ton of sense because he's essentially a center at times while playing the wing because of the playmaking rates. Like, so they need, as all Nashville fans here in this know, they absolutely desperately need top of the lineup primary playmakers. They have a lot of snipers that they can't set up properly right now. So from that perspective, it makes sense. The other part that makes sense with this pick is that this player is almost NHL ready relative to the rest of this class. Nashville absolutely wants to retool in a hurry here, I think. So Martin fits that bill very well.
All right, Jerome, you've got it recorded on our little screen there. And we move on to the Philadelphia Flyers. And we're back to Christian to make this pick.
Yeah, I think if you're Philly, you have to come away at the center. You got plenty of wings, but your center depth you're still building that out. It's between O'Brien and Martin, and I think they're both very good, so that becomes a tough choice. I'm gonna go with Brady Martin, just because he plays that typical Flyer style, like throwback style. O'Brien is definitely tempting too because you have some skilled wings, and I think with his playmaking ability, you could set that up. But I think with Philly and the way Brady Martin plays, he's a winner, and he plays that that tough style that I think he'll just be a fan favorite, franchise icon in Philly. I think there's just no way Philly passes on him.
Yeah, it would be an interesting decision there if they were trying to decide between those two players. I changed my mind a few times in my ranking on those two players myself. So to me, that's personally a difficult choice, but I probably would have leaned Brady Martin. I also will be surprised if Brady Martin gets past that Philadelphia pick and makes it to number 7. Not saying it's going to be for sure Philly, but I don't think he's going to get past that. I don't think we'll get past the next pick, which we'll move on to here, which is Boston, and we're back to Brad.
I'll throw in just quickly the interesting aspect of the Brady Martin of Philly too is look at their center depth potentially with Luchenko and Martin is they're going to be very small but very competitive. So it might be one of those situations where it's a rare outlier where you can have small centers and make it work still, which might change things depending on how they do down in the future. In the case of Boston, as all of you beautiful Bruins fans know, you are lacking dynamism. Your system is really not, one of the top 5 or 10 systems by any stretch. You guys have been winning a ton in recent years, so you need to stock the cupboard. And I think you got to bring in the most dynamic player in terms of offensive upside potentially on this list. I say potentially. I think it's very debatable with O'Brien, but I think they go with James Hagens here. I think Hagens makes a lot of sense for Boston. Boston loves to draft out of the USHL and college. They're very, very good at drafting out of the USHL, very comfortable there. They've obviously seen a ton of James Hagens in the previous season too. And I think that's going to really matter because I think the team that takes Hagens is ultimately going to take him as a result of his previous year, not really this season. So I'm thinking that they take the most dynamic player because you look at what they have in their system. Fabian Lysell is struggling developmentally, and Georgi Merkulov is also looking like he might end up being a career AHLer and not make it full time. So you look at the most dynamic talents in Boston, they might not be playing. They need to bring in dynamism. That's what Hagens brings.
All right. Anybody else want to comment a little bit about that pick?
I mean, the fact that Hagens played at Boston College probably doesn't hurt. The fact that the Bruins might have some I don't want to say more viewings, but I mean he's right in their backyard, so that could make some sense here. There's some good players left here, like Denway is still there, Jake O'Brien is still there, So there's a lot of good candidates here for that. For the Bruins at 7, and also for Seattle at 8, Buffalo at 9. So it's always, I think the McQueen pick kind of like is
Shakes
making
things up.
yeah is making some guys go a bit lower than what I thought at the start.
Yeah, Brad messed everything up.
As I always do.
All right. So as Jerome just mentioned, I was just going to mention this. We've got Jake O'Brien would be our best available. And then Desnoyers next, who we had ranked 5th and 7th on our list. And we are on to Seattle with Jerome making this pick.
Okay, that's actually a tough one here because before we did this, my pick, I was thinking that it was going to be Marca at 8, but then I didn't think O'Brien would be there. I didn't think Desnoyers would be there. So it's interesting. Like Seattle has draft, Berkeley Catton last year as an offensive center. They have draft a lot from the CHL, OHL, WHL. I think they need some defensemen. So I'm gonna go with Randon Merca here because I think they really need some big time defensemen to build their team. So Merca is the guy here for me. I think they have a lot of center already on the team. They have also quite a few center prospect coming up. So I'll go with Merca here at number 8.
All right, Seattle picks the big 6'5" 3/4 right shot defenseman. And that leaves the two guys I just mentioned, O'Brien and Desnoyers, still available.
That's shocking.
For the 8th pick, which is the Buffalo Sabres. And our scout, J. Brad, is going to make this pick.
Yeah, talk about headaches. Thanks for doing this to me, guys. Brad, you really threw a wrench in me here because I had McQueen pegged to Buffalo at 9. Wow, I did not expect O'Brien. I got to take him here. So Jake O'Brien's got to come off. I know they got some right shot guys with plenty there, but Jake O'Brien's a guy you plug him into the power play. He's an excellent power play guy. So many of his points came on the power play. Buffalo needs a lot, and Jake O'Brien will provide that. Again, another player that I've watched since he was about 15, 14 years old, playing with JRC, Toronto Junior Canadians, all the way up to Brantford now, and a huge fan. He gets better as the games get tough, and Buffalo wants the games to get tough. So this is a good pick to make that happen with Jake O'Brien.
Nice selection there, J. Brad. This is one of my favorite players in this draft. O'Brien, with his size that he's, hopefully going to grow into eventually here. He's just a hair under 6'2", I think was his final measurement. He put on a little weight. He was the weight was down a little bit low, but he put on some weight. What did he get up to? 177. So he put on, I think, 7 pounds on from the end of the season until Combine Day, which is nice to see. You'd like to see him just keep gaining the weight. I think he's got to get into the gym. Hopefully, whoever drafts him gets him on a good program, and he starts doing that. And I think his game is going to be night and day when he gets a little bit stronger. He did get stronger this year, and it already helped him compared to the start of this year and last year, where it was one of his biggest weaknesses. He was just getting bounced around and on his ass a lot. That changed a little bit this year as he got a little bit stronger, but the playmaking skill is elite. And when you see a guy his size with that type of vision playmaking skill, it's pretty impressive. So love this pick here for Buffalo. And anybody else want to comment on that before we just quickly move on?
Yeah, Buffalo wins the draft. Congrats. You guys finally get to do something positive here for your franchise. So, yeah, it'll be huge. I mean, this is what Buffalo needs, though. They need a break. This would be a break. If you get O'Brien at 9, you're getting a break.
Yeah, I would agree that that's a break getting him at 9. Okay, so we are up to the 10th pick, the Anaheim Ducks, and we are back to our USA area scout Christian to make this one.
Yeah, I think if you're Anaheim, you got your centers already in place. You got McTavish and Carlson. You got a ton of left shot defensemen. So, some of the names up the board here, they just don't feel a need. I'm going with Carter Bear. I think you put Bear next to McTavish, and you got Leo Carlson on your top line, and then you got Bear, and then you have a second line of McTavish and Bear. You're building a great top 6 where you got 2 lines that can score, 2 lines that can play at both ends, 2 lines that can compete. Bear, on our grading system, we gave him a 9 for compete, which is our highest grade. So you're just building, you're adding another guy that can just play competitive hockey and, start to build a winning team there. So I think with Anaheim, you already got a lot of your foundational pieces in place. I think that's a great add-on piece to, building a good team.
I would be really interested if it played out in the scenario we've just done and Desnoyers was available at pick 10 for Anaheim and see them pass on him. Their director of scouting based in Quebec, one of their top guys, their Q scout. They've taken a lot of players out of the Q over the years. So obviously, I don't know what they're doing, but that would be a fun one to watch if Desnoyers somehow made it to 10 and see what they would do. Jerome, you got a comment on that one?
I'm the biggest Carter Bear fan on the planet. We all are, I guess. But yeah, I would be surprised if and I know they have like McTavish, they have Carlson.
That's why it'd be interesting. Yeah, that's why it'd be so interesting because Christian's right with his checking out, their needs and where they currently are and all that sort of stuff. So it'd be really interesting.
It's like Pittsburgh when they took Jordan Staal and they had Crosby and Malkin. If Desnoyers is your third line center and he's, very good defensively as we know he is, I could see that happening. It's gonna be interesting to see because Christian is right that they need more. You would think they need more wingers than center at this point. I know they just got Carter Gauthier and Troy Terry is there. Trevor Zegras just got traded, but I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Anaheim pass on Desnoyers if he's there at 10, just based on what they usually do with Q prospect. They don't shy away from Q prospect. So that would be the most. After the McQueen pick at number 3, I think that would be probably the more interesting pick here at 10. If Anaheim pass or not on Desnoyers at 10.
I'm all about best player available, and also he played left wing for the second half of the season. So
yeah, that's true.
To have a guy that can play both positions and have center depth, a dual position guy, I'm just grabbing him. Anybody else with a quick comment before we move on to the 11th pick?
Yeah, one quick comment for them. I know that they fired their coach there. When I was watching Anaheim, I thought they were the flattest team compared to pace wise, energy wise. They're flat, super flat. And Carter Bear makes the most sense, I think, out of any player. Him and Eklund, probably the 2 highest pace players, energy players here that make any sense. So I think Carter Bear does make a lot of sense, even though admittedly, if they passed him Desnoyers, there would be a lot of discussion about it for sure.
He injects a lot into this lineup, that's for sure. But he would do that with any lineup. But as Brett said, they've been pretty flat. And they're a guy you want down your stretch in the playoffs. They're a team that's been rebuilding for a while. This is the kind of player that you'd want.
All right, so I'll sum up the 10th overall pick. We all didn't like Christian's pick,
and we love Carter Bear. That's the worst part.
I know. Anyways. The 11th pick, we are back to everybody's favorite. Brad's making the pick for Kyle Dubas's Pittsburgh Penguins.
Okay, so they need absolutely everything. They're in a very difficult situation, as you all know. Everybody listen to this. You have to try to retool on the fly here for Sid the Kid and Malkin and Letang and Carlson. They're all getting up there. They're going to all be retiring soon. And admittedly, coming into this, I did not think center outside of Rezny was going to be available. I thought we were going to have to go defenseman here, rebuild the back end there. But I mean, they got a hybrid winger in Tanner Howe. Ville Koivunen looked very good in a small sample there, but I really think projects as a winger long term. Not enough foot speed. They absolutely need to get a center, and that means we're going to enter Caleb Desnoyers immediately. I think Dubas would be thrilled to have Desnoyers fall to Pittsburgh at this spot, and then he gets the tutelage under Crosby, both coming from the Q, and I can't imagine a better scenario for Desnoyers.
Yeah, I think that was the pretty easy, logical pick at that point. Anybody else want to chime in, or are we going to move on from that one?
Well, pretty easy pick, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah.
Didn't think Dinwiddie was going to drop to 11. I'd be surprised if this happens on draft day, but hey, you never know. The draft might be pretty crazy this year, so let's see, I guess.
All right, the New York Rangers are picking 12th overall, and Jerome is going to play GM for this mock draft pick.
Yeah, so I mean, it says like Pittsburgh here on the screen, but like they have an option until I think 24 hours before the draft to swap the pick with Pittsburgh. So, but I'll make the pick as the Rangers at this point. Rangers prospect wise, they need pretty much everything. They need to get some really good young player. I think they go with Victor Eklund. It's a team that I think needs some more, a bit like Brad was talking about with Anaheim. They need more speed, they need more pace, and no one is better than Victor Eklund for that. They have, over the last few years, you look at the Capo Caco draft, the Lafreniere draft, they draft a lot of good prospect, but not the fastest player. So with Eklund, they do get a guy who there will be no issue with the skating here and the pace. So Victor Eklund here is the pick for the New York Rangers.
Yeah, I agree with the speed component for sure, because if you look, Chris Kreider's out, right? Zibanejad's getting a bit slower now. Panarin's not fast whatsoever. Brendan Othman's coming in. He's not a burner by any stretch, and Perreault is their best prospect, and he's slow. So slow in straight lines. Open ice, slower, but obviously great edge work. So it's one of those situations where they absolutely need a burner. They need – I was thinking Smith on defense there, but Eklund makes a ton of sense. They have to have a speed component coming in here pretty soon.
Yeah, I like the pick. Obviously, based on our ranking, we've got him up there. Fan of the player. And I think the logic was just used to describe that pick. All makes sense. Okay, where are we up to? We are up to the Detroit Red Wings at 13th overall, and we're back to Jay Brad to make this pick.
Yeah, so I had my top two guys at this point for Detroit on the board. Jerome, you made my job easy by taking Eklund, so I'm going Jackson Smith for Detroit. Detroit's picked a lot of good defensemen over the years, or Steve Eisman's picked a lot of good defensemen over the years. They've drafted out of the dub a little bit, so Smith has that connection. But with Philip Hronek gone, I know he's a right shot, Smith is the left shot, but a good shooting defenseman from the point. Smith got the goals late, but he was able to shoot from the point really well. If he hits, wow, he's going to be a really good player. He's got that dynamic skating ability that Detroit, I think, will really enjoy coming out of the zone. So I think for me, Smith's the easy pick for Detroit at this point. Like I said, I had two guys. Jerome made it easy for me, and yes, Stevie Y goes with the defenseman here.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in? One thing I'll tell everybody too. It looks like we are going to do a live draft show on Friday night. So we will have a lot of time in between picks to kind of talk about these players. So we're going to keep it a little shorter tonight as we do this mock draft. Just keep it to a little bit more of like the why I thought they might do this, and less about, a little less about player attributes. And we'll talk about that on Friday night. But if anybody else wants to comment about Jay Brad's pick there, we can do that before we move on to Columbus at 14.
Sure. I'll chime in and just say, like, if you look at Nate Danielson, Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard, the Austrian, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Somebody help me.
Marco Kasper.
Thank you, Mark Casper. So if you look at all three of those guys, like, they're all fantastic players. They're all very Swiss Army knife in some ways. Nygaard's the only one that really has that specialization in terms of the shooting ability. And so it's like with Jackson Smith, I think he brings a different component that this team really needs. They need another game breaker. They need a player who can really just be a one-on-one machine when he needs to be and just transition. And they have the resources defensively to allow him to do his thing because they can insulate him. They can put him in a position with another towering defensive partner that will allow him to be a rover and be that fourth forward essentially, which is what he should be. So I really like it. I also like the fact that it's going to give them more options on the power play because you got Seider there, and then you have Jackson Smith coming in that can help alleviate Seider, and I think that will be huge because Seider is such a big minute eater for them. So I think it's a good pick. Makes a lot of sense.
Very different from past years, as Brad mentioned. They went very safe with like Casper, Danielson, even the Norwegian, like pretty safe guy to play. All those guys can be second line player or like middle six guys. Like almost felt like they draft like pretty similar player in each of those years. But Jackson Smith I wouldn't call him a safe prospect, but the upside is really high. I think with him, with his size, his skating, the way he finished the year with like something like 9 goals in his last 13 games. He's one of the few defensemen in this class that has actual offensive upside. It's I don't know why, but it's one of those draft where there's not many offensive defensemen available anywhere. At least in the top 3-4 rounds, in my opinion. So, Smith can bring that to the table. So I like that. I like that pick for the Red Wings here at 13.
Okay, pick 14 is the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we are back to Christian to make this pick.
I'm going with another need-based pick here. I'm going to go with Logan Hensler. With Columbus, you already have your 1-2 center punch of Fantilli and Caden Lindstrom. You got a ton of skilled wingers. You got on the left side on your defense, you got Werenski and Matejchuk, but you don't have much on your right side, at least projecting forward. So Hensler gives you another mobile defenseman, gives you another right shot defenseman, that you could, pair in your top 4. So a need pick, but I think it makes sense for Columbus.
Brad, you want to chime in on this one?
Sure. I do watch a lot of Columbus because of goaltending there. But, to Christian's point, like, he's dead on the money. They have a ton of exceptional, talented wingers. Their back end might be a bit shallow here if Provorov leaves. They need to fill in on the right there. So I think it's one of those situations where I think Hensler's underrated for this class, and I think it makes a ton of sense in terms of what they need. So I won't be shocked, honestly. Like, of course, some of these are going to be way off the mark, but I won't be shocked if this one isn't. I think Hensler to Columbus actually makes a ton of sense.
So we are up to the Vancouver Canucks, and we are back to Bradley.
Okay, Vancouver. So Besser's a free agent. He's not coming back most likely. Karamaki's going to plug in and take his spot there. This team is, wow, I mean, out of teams that had, you could argue, a disastrous season. I don't know if any team had a more difficult season than Vancouver. Because of that, I think they have to go very safe here. They have to make this player hit. Tom Willander is a very unique defenseman, probably a second-line defenseman with real speed. But I'm going to take a player here that doesn't have much speed, and they don't have a ton there offensively coming through right now. Atu Ratu, we think, is a depth piece. Danil Klimovich is still a long shot. Karamaki will need time. He's in there for Besser. So we're going to go with Cole Rezny. Cole Rezny has a high floor. He's a very competitive player. He can be, we think he can stick at center, which is why we've ranked him very high on our actual list. And he's one of those players that is a high character player, a competitive player, and they need players that can really be captain style material for them. They need some leadership. Elias Pettersson, as you all know, very fragile season, right? It's very difficult season for him. He needs some support. And I think Kolresny can give him that support.
I think that's a good pick.
I like that pick.
Yeah, I think as Brad mentioned, we project him to be able to stay at center, and I think he's got some Perfetti-like traits at times. Better skater at the same age, but at the same time, not a fantastic skater, but just good enough that it won't be a stopper for him. I think really interesting. So that was Vancouver. Anybody else want to talk about the Vancouver pick that Brad has made here?
Yeah, I've been a big fan of Rushney all year. He's in my area. I saw a lot of them. So plays in Victoria, so he just stays in his area, goes to Vancouver. I think they trading JT Miller. If you watch Kolresny in the playoffs, the extra kind of punch that he had, that aggression during the playoffs, throwing cross checks, harder on the forecheck, I think he really fits with that Vancouver system and the team that they have there, especially if he sticks at center, of course, like we all project him to. Okay,
the next pick is Montreal. Funny how Jerome ended up with Montreal. So the 16th overall pick is the Montreal Canadiens. They are on the clock, and Jérôme Bérubé is making this pick.
Okay, this is a very difficult pick. I feel like honestly, we're at we made 15 selection, and I didn't check, but I'm pretty sure top 14 of our 15 top players are gone. So
yeah, we've got Riker Lee is available. Kerbin Lee Matov is available. I think quickly as I glance here, everybody else is gone.
Yeah, the only guy who was not in our top 15 was Ansler 17. So everyone else is gone. So Montreal, you're at 16. Very difficult pick to make because so they have two first round pick here. So you could make a case they could, maybe take a risk here at 16, or just go with like a big, strong, physical power forward that they really need, like a Nestrasil, Van Sagi, but they might be a bit of a reach at 16. So I'm gonna go with since I don't have the 17th pick and I don't have control over it, so I'll go with a safe pick here at actually no. I'm gonna go with a risky pick, but we love him, so Montreal still needs some guys to score some goals, so I'm gonna go with Riker Lee. It's a difficult pick here to make, but I feel like as people kind of like might figure out, like the draft after like the 14, 15 pick, it kind of drops. So I think depending on the strategy you want to use, you can go like I've done other mock draft where I gave like a big power forward to Montreal here, but it might be a bit of a reach at 16 getting one of Nestrasil or Van Sagi here. So Riker Lee is my pick. They need a right winger who can really score some goals and create plays. So yeah, Riker Lee is my pick here at 16.
Or live in Fantasyland and trade both picks and try and go get Brady Martin. All right. I agree. These back-to-back Montreal picks, I think, are difficult. I think they're getting more difficult as we move on to the second half here. As Jerome mentioned, the lists kind of get a little more scrambled across teams once we get past that first grouping that we have now successfully gone through, and they've all been drafted. So it'll get a little bit more interesting as we make the back half of these first round picks. And I think as fans are watching Friday night, it will be exactly that when we watch the actual live draft happen. So with that said, does anybody else have a comment about Jerome's pick there?
Yeah, Demidov and him together. I'm watching them. I don't usually watch football very often. I'm on board now. I'll watch that all day.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Riker Lee on Friday night when we're doing our live draft show. But pretty big fans on this stream here for that player. Okay, so we are back. Obviously, as Jerome just said, they got back-to-back picks. I believe this one is the actual Calgary pick that they took. And who's making this one? It is Jay Brad.
Yeah. All right, I am up. That back-to-back one's a little tough, as Jerome said. You need the size. One of my real good friends is a Montreal fan, so I really hope I bug him with this pick. But I am going to go with size. I am going to stick on the right side like Jerome, and I am going to reach a little bit and grab Nestrasil. I know Jerome was taking him in a mock draft previously. I just think size-wise, with what Montreal needs on the wing, they need a big size guy. I think this pick fits. I know Riker Lee, he's more of the goal scorer finesse. I think Nestrasil really fits that grind that they're going to need as they start pushing into the playoffs now. They made it last year. They're going to continue pushing forward. And I think that the big-bodied Nestrasil really helps them there.
All right. Jerome, you want to chime in on that Montreal pick, the second one?
Yeah, I mean, I love Nestrasil, as Jay Brad mentioned. Like, I did pick him in another mock draft that I did. Yeah, it might be considered a bit of a reach, but they need more players like him. So, Josh Henderson was a new man this year, and I did compare Nestrasil a bit to Josh Henderson. Less fat, less like speedy. Like his skating is a work in progress, a bit of a short stride, but he's very smart, very good playmaking skills with that player, and he's almost 6'6", so he's going to college. He's going to get stronger physically. Very physical. One of the more physical player in this class. So, hey, look at that. Montreal going USHL back-to-back year. So
Rare.
Anybody else? The second Montreal
I'll just
pick?
quickly say, it makes a ton of sense. So just for everybody listening, one thing that you should know is when teams have multiple picks, one thing they do is they try to counterbalance those picks at times. So if you take a dynamic talent that has a low floor, you're looking immediately to find a high floor player after to try to compensate, right? So Nestrasil, we think, is a very high floor, where Lee has a lower floor. So there's a balancing act there, and that's exactly how teams operate. The best example of this ever is the LA Kings, when they had 3 picks in the top, 40 picks there, and 2 of them were extremely high, or not extremely high. One of them was extremely high. So they took Turcotte and Bjornfot. And when they thought that they had insulated the draft and had those high floor diamond players, that's when they took a massive swing on Arthur Kaliev. And that's how a lot of teams think. That's how they operate. So if your team on draft day has multiple picks, one way you can kind of predict the order of things, if you know that they're a low floor player, they're probably going to go high floor next, and vice versa. So just in terms of draft strategy, I thought I would throw something out there.
Yeah, and I've always despised that draft strategy when it's talked about with scouts, when I'm with them, or I hear it in media talk or on our stream right now. To me, the picks have the same value. There's not a difference because you have 2. They have the same value. So I've never liked we'll take a swing. It's still, they're back-to-back picks in this case, 16, 17. I think you can still just make the pick you would make at either selection if you only had 1 pick. That's just my personal take. Other teams obviously disagree because we see it all the time where they take the swing. But I personally, I've never liked that. All right, 18 is the Calgary Flames, and Christian's up for this one.
Yep. At 18, I'm going to take Lyndon Lakovic. For Calgary, you're kind of like in a weird stage where you have a little bit of an aging team and you really don't have a new core yet. So with Lakovic, it's an upside pick. You take a guy with a really high ceiling And, if it works out, you have a potential building block piece there, or maybe not necessarily a building block piece, but a player that can definitely play in your top six and produce. He's a guy, he's 6'4", he's got a lot of skill, and there's some question marks on the compete. But if he can figure that out, you have a guy with a really high upside. And at 18, it could be like a pick that, in hindsight, it looks really good.
I think if memory serves, Brad had him highest on his personal list out of everybody. I'm not sure. I think you and Jerome are pretty close. Brad, you want to chime in?
I have him at 18th.
Yeah. Would you have him, Jerome? You were very similar, I believe. So.
Yeah, I mean, on the Top 32 podcast, me and Brad did argue a bit about him, but we
broke it down for all three of us with you two, Mark. We were like, these are all three separate opinions on this very difficult to rank player.
Yeah, I mean, we have somewhat of a different opinion, but we do have him in the same range, so it doesn't, he's like 18-20 range, I think, for us. Yeah, nice pick by Calgary. If it works out, it's gonna look good for them.
Yeah, I think this will for them.
RJ, Brad, the better Brad, go.
No.
The nice Brad.
New Brad. So yeah, I think this pick makes sense. If you look at it, they picked Samuel Honzek out of Vancouver a couple years ago. So another big kid out of the dub for them. They had a string where they drafted like smaller guys like Coronado. They had Pelletier. They picked some smaller guys. So going a little bigger, Honzek, and then now with Lakovic, I think that makes sense for how they've kind of projected. And with Lakovic, again, he's got that lower compete, like Christian mentioned. But if this kid can turn it around, I know Brad and I spoke a bit about it in the scouting sessions that we did earlier on in the year. If he turns this around, he's a huge talent for this draft. Like he's a huge hit, and in a redraft, he could go top 10, top 5, even if he really hits. So this is a really good pick at this point.
Yeah, to follow up on that, he's the equalizer pick. So, Calgary, they exceeded some expectations this season. And it's one of those picks where if you draft this player at this spot, if he does hit, then he's going to be top 7, 8 in a redraft, right? And that's the equalizing effect. One thing I'll say is, like, there's two things. One, Calgary fans are screaming at us, we need centers. We need centers. Please give us a center. There are some people in this industry, including Lakovic himself, who does believe he can play center long term. Okay, now obviously if we debated that here, this is going to be double the length of this podcast. There are people in this industry that absolutely believe that Lakovic can be a center long term, has the playmaking ability to do it, has the size, has the skating package. He falls into the category, for everyone listening, of the Oscar Lauzens, Ryan Suzuki's, Dominic Box, the Wozniak's another one in this class, where there's a tremendous amount of potential. There's a lack of understanding how to unleash it at this time within this young man. There's a developmental switch that needs to be flipped. So it's, Calgary, you look at their product on the ice, they love competitive players. Lakovic's question mark has been that. So if they were to take him here, that means that they would think that they could work with him and really mold him correctly, much in the same way that they had to do with Honzek. And Honzek, not the highest paced player in his draft year, not the most inside driven player, relative to his size in his draft year. So if they were comfortable molding Honzek and they believe he's on the right track, then Lakovic might make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. We will move on to the 19th overall pick, which is the St. Louis Blues. And we are back to Christian to make this pick.
Brad.
Oh, did I screw that up? Yes, I did screw it up. Brad, my bad.
Okay, so this is actually tricky now. I didn't think Coots and Vinseg would be available, and they're the two most St. Louis players that have ever played. So, I think they'll go positionally. I think they're going to go with Braden Coots. If these were the players available, it's down to those two for me. Let's go with Braden Coots. The hallmark of St. Louis's drafting foundation, based off of previous picks, is the competitive nature of the player. This player is incredibly competitive. He's a complete hockey player. He's extremely well-rounded. He plays a 200-foot game. He's responsible. He's the type of player you win with. That's what St. Louis looks to draft a lot. They don't care about the flash and dash. They care about substance. Braden Coots brings substance.
He does do that. J. Brad, this is your area. Anything you want to add on this guy?
I love this player. So I think it's a really good pick for St. Louis. I have him as a 3C down the road. Really great energy, as Brad alluded to. Captain in his draft year. Part-time to start the year, full-time to end the year. Captain for Canada as well. So overall, I've been a big fan of him all year. I like his shooting. I think Brad, not as much of a fan, but overall, I do think he has a really good shot. So I think down the middle for St. Louis, you plug Coots into that future 3C role with those leadership qualities. I think you got a really good pick here.
The next team that is up is the Columbus Blue Jackets again with the 20th overall pick, and we are back to Jerome to make this pick.
All right. So second first round pick for them in this class. They took Logan Ensler at 14. Unfortunately, a lot of my guys at 20 are also defensemen. I don't know if they want to go with 2 defensemen here in the first round. They still need some, maybe some scoring in their, prospect pool. Also, when you have 2 first round pick, I know Mark doesn't like it, but sometimes you can take maybe a risky pick here after, like, Logan Ensler is pretty as safe as it gets in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with and also Columbus loves drafting Russian, so I'm gonna go with Alexander Zarovsky here for the Blue Jackets at 20. First Russian player off the board here in this draft.
Now, if they make this pick, I'll stand up and cheer. I like the mock, Jerome. Brad, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, developmentally, look how comfortable they are with drafting Russians. And they've had to bring in some super skilled players and round out their game. If you look at Kirill Marchenko, we loved him in his draft season, but admittedly he was raw and really needed to develop that 200-foot game in order to be able to get in the top of the lineup. And then you look at Voronkov's situation, and he's developed unbelievably well in their system. So there's some recent success here with high-end Russian players, and Zarovsky really fits the mold with what they're trying to develop there. Another super, super talented Russian winger who can fit in that top 9. And if he hits on that team, oh my goodness, that would be scary. That'd be good stuff for Columbus.
Yeah, for draft fans out there that are watching our stream here, search YouTube. I'm sure there's some highlights of him on YouTube, and he's an enjoyable one. If you just want to watch some of his highlights, there's some pretty fun stuff there that he's put on tape.
He's a Russian Riker Lee.
Yeah. So that is Columbus. Made their second pick, and we are up to the Ottawa Senators making their selection at 21 overall, and we are back to J. Brad.
Yeah. So there's a couple defensemen that I see here that are, to me, very Ottawa picks. But there is also a forward here that's a very Ottawa pick for me. So I'm having a little bit of trouble. But this one's got me. But I'm going to...
You want to call a timeout? You want to call a timeout?
No, I'm going to go with who I had coming in. It's the guy I've predicted going to Ottawa all year. No, I'm not. I'm going with John Aitchison. I'm throwing myself out here. I think they're going a teammate of their pick from last year, Gabriel Eliasson. I know Ottawa probably does not want a defenseman. They want me to go forward here. But I do think that they're going to go Aitchison. I think they're going to go with the heavy hitter. I think they're going to not expect him to fall to here. I think they're going to believe a team takes him ahead of here. Big hitting. They're back. They're a team that's in the playoffs now. They need a little bit more toughness on that back end, and I think Kejon Aitchison brings it. So I'm not going with the guy I've had to him all year because I didn't think Aitchison would be here, and I think he's better overall than the other player that I had on the board. I'll turn that over.
Yeah, he is finally off the board. As we are recording this today, Bob McKenzie released his final list, and Aitchison was 13th overall, which was about 7 or 8 spots further up the board than we had him on our final list. So 10 scout consensus for Bob, and he's got him 13th overall. So it'll be interesting to see on draft day who does jump out and select him. And I've had plenty of talks about him this year with various people. Seen him a lot. And it does get down to the point where that would not be that shocking a pick if Ottawa was the team to finally say that's enough of a slide for him, according to like a Bob's list type thing. So anybody else want to comment on that selection at 21 by the Senators?
So I was like watched them a bit in the playoff against Toronto. I was watching Tyler Clevin, a guy who was really popular on the board back in 220, and that's his sarcasm. We didn't have much time for him, but like he's looking like he's gonna play, and he's gonna play for a long time in the NHL. So Aitchison has more talent than Clevin, but they both bring like that physical dimension on the left side. I don't know if that's too much. Having those two in your top 6. I mean, if one was a right shot, might have been a different story. So, but they definitely saw Aitchison a lot this year, watching Gabriel Eliasson in Barrie. So I was wondering when he was going to go. I saw him drop here in the 20s. So he does fit like what Ottawa likes. So not. I was hoping, because I know who J. Brad was thinking for that pick. So
we all know what I was thinking.
Yeah. So, but a bit surprised Aitchison, fell to 21. So it makes sense. Like it fits what Ottawa wants to play. That physical game with Ketchuk and Clevin and really Craig and all those guys. So I think that pick makes sense.
J. Brad, could Fiddler have been your other choice?
How did you know, Mark?
I just figured.
Oh man, I thought that was the biggest surprise, at least for our group, for the conversations that we've had all year. Fiddler was the other guy. Like I said, it was. I didn't expect him to fall, and because that was who I had Ottawa picking all year, and Aitchison being here makes a little bit more. I think he's a better player than Fiddler. That's really what comes down to. I think they're both very similar Ottawa. I think they're both very Ottawa picks, and Aitchison's just the better player for me, so that's why I picked him. Last year they went with Yakimchuk on the right side, so flip it up, take Aitchison this year on the left.
All right, 22nd overall is held by the Philadelphia Flyers again, and we are back to Christian to make this pick.
Boy, I wasn't planning to do this coming in, but I think I'm going with Shane Vansagi, just because you take Brady, you come out of the draft with Brady Martin and Shane Vansagi, you just built a team that's very hard to play against. I mean, you got size, physicality. I mean, you're building the next Florida Panthers. No one wants to play these guys. I think that's just too tempting to pass up. I'm taking Vansagi, and I'm happy.
I might become a Flyers fan. The Broad Street Bullies are back.
Yeah.
The words out of my mouth there. Great double up there with Martin and Vansagi.
I absolutely love Van Sage. So I'm good with the pick because I'm a huge fan of him. That's kind of funny. It would be awesome to see the Flyers turn back into the Broad Street Bullies.
Yeah, you're really channeling Philadelphia there, Christian, with your pick.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in on that selection?
Sure. I mean, like we just talked about how their centers will be small, and you need to insulate smaller centers, even though Luchenko's a beast of an athlete and Martin thinks he's 6'9". So Van he can come in and insulate them. That's Van he can protect them. Van he can be that energy backer for them when they're a bit flat. And we're at that stage in the class now where you're talking about strictly role players, with one exception that we're about to get to. So I think it makes a ton of sense. Vincegi's, I think, publicly maybe one of the more underrated players in the draft.
All right. Just looking quickly, our best available. We've got Rombach, our 19th player, still available. Potter still available. No one took Limatov, correct? At 16 yet. He's still available.
Spence.
That's it from up there.
Yeah.
Matthew Spence, our 22nd ranked player, which we're just getting to the 23rd pick here. So that is it from the top 20-ish type guys that are still available. So with that said, we will move on to the 23rd pick, and we are back to Nashville picking with Brad.
Yeah, this one's really tricky because Nashville is in a situation where I think they had arguably the worst season out of any team last year. I don't think it could have gone much worse, and they need absolutely everything. We've seen them draft heavy, tenacious players recently, and that's, I think, is a byproduct of when they're in the playoffs. They were getting overwhelmed physically, so they're starting to compensate and make sure they get some players that were more heavy set and ferocious out there. That said, we're at that stage where I just mentioned, like, you need to BPA this. I'm a goalie scout. They just lost Askarov, and it makes sense with the timing of Saros' contract for them to really take one of the top-end goalies. And let's go with we think is the safest bet in Joshua Ravensbergen. So what happened with Askarov, obviously everybody knows, contract situation where they signed Saros, and that made Askarov expendable, and who didn't want to come in as a split starter. With Ravensbergen and the timing of this pick, it should be perfect for Saros to give up the reins to him. So I think it's just down to timing. This is an organization that has no problem in terms of taking goalies off the board. They're very good at drafting and developing goalies. So I think Ravensbergen makes a ton of sense for this organization, where they're getting, I think, the most dynamic talent that they can at this position.
Anybody want to chime in?
I mean, it makes sense. I think I feel like everyone online has predicted Nashville taking a goalie either at 23 or 26. So, and Ravensbergen seems like the safest bet of the big three of the goalies. And one reason why he's safe is that they have seen him live compared to like the two Russian goalie. Unless you're talking about the Russian scout, but like their, director of scouting, head scout, like it's pretty hard to see for them to see the two Russian goalies. So I think Ravensbergen makes sense here for Nashville.
I think it's a decent little mock draft pick. The Nashville Sounders. I do like the timing, as Brad said, that by the time, you don't want to rush goalies of any position, especially goalies. So I do like the timing of, taking some time. I mean, we're looking at Askarov just going to finally kind of get settling in now in the NHL. At least that's the hope. And if you think about Ravensbergen kind of on that same schedule, then yeah, it will be around the time where Saros might be winding down a little bit, even just splitting time at the start and that sort of thing. So not a bad little selection there. So that was the 23rd pick, we're up to the Los Angeles Kings with the 24th overall pick, and we are back to Jerome to make this selection.
All right. The Kings will select the guy who has the biggest upside, but probably the biggest boom bust guy in the first round, and his name is Justin Carbonneau from Blainville-Boisbriand in the Q. You talk about his shooting ability, his hands. He's right up there with anyone in the draft with, Frondell, I would say, shooting-wise. So the reason why he's there and the reason why we have him lower on our list, I mean, we did talk about it on the other podcast, when we're going to talk about it like Friday night also. There's a lot of question mark if you thinking about hockey sense, selfishness, playmaking as well. I mean, it fits with the lack of hockey sense here. So all that, but at this point in the draft, I think the Kings look at this kid can really shoot a puck, he can score, and like every team, they'll think, oh, we can show him the rest. We can work with him. We can make him better. So Justin Carbonneau is my pick at 24 for the LA Kings, and his style fits really well with Los Angeles. So
he is a fantastic goal scorer. Hardest thing to do, he does it really well. The rest of his game starts to slide after the goal scoring part, but again, really difficult thing to do in the NHL is score goals. He does it very well. His goals, when you're watching him, scouting him, many of them translate to being able to beat NHL goalies. So he's an interesting player for where he is going to come off. Is he going to be one of the picks in the mid rounds, maybe one of the two to Montreal, that sort of thing, or is he going to indeed slide into these 20s here? We shall see in a few days. Anybody else want to chime in on that pick before we move on?
I'll just say I think he will get drafted higher than what we have. I know for a lot of you watching this, you're like, how in the heck do you have him this late? But we have honestly a very different opinion on this player than most people. We think that there's a lot of risk involved with the pick. His 200-foot game is in its infancy. He plays a very heavy junior game right now. There's not a lot of pro in him at this time, and there is a bit of concern with the maturity level of the player. So it's one of those situations where they're coming off a Kaliev trade as well, and there is some overlap. We've talked about this. I know everybody here. We've talked about loose comp for Carbonneau having being Kaliev in some ways, right? From the fact that not a great 200-foot player, can forget his assignments at times, and then very raw with the exception of the shot and some hockey sense concerns. So there's a bit of overlap. They're different, but there's a bit of overlap, and so it'd be very interesting to see what the Kings would do if they were theoretically put in this position.
I don't think this would be the pick, but I'll leave it at that. We can talk more on Friday night when we see who they do pick. So that was the 24th overall pick. The 25th pick, we are back to the Chicago Blackhawks. And who is this? J. Brad.
Yeah. So again, this part of the draft is where it opens up. There's a lot of options. I do like earlier with the Roger McQueen pick. Brad talked a lot about talking about changing things up a little bit with Chicago. I'm going to half do that. I'm going to still draft out of the OHL, kind of like they did last year with their late pick with Marek Van Acker. I'm going with Malcolm Spence. I'm going to go with responsibility here. I like this pick for Chicago. I like that he's still available. And again, it ties back into that changing things up a little bit for the Blackhawks. I've watched Malcolm Spence play for a long time. Again, back to when he played with Michael Misa on the Mississauga Senators. He was a puck magnet back then, more for offense. Now he uses a little bit more to be a better defensive player. So I like this pick for Chicago. I think it fits what they're trying to do moving forward.
All right. Anybody else?
Pretty safe pick. Like Spence is pretty good away from the puck, really good on the PK. The question with him is, how much offensive upside does he really have? Is he a clear-cut top six forward or more of a third line player? I think that's a bit of a reason why he's sliding a bit here at 25. I don't know if he's going to go that late in the real draft, but I guess we'll know Friday night.
Yeah, I think consistency scares some scouts a little bit. When he's on, he looks really good, but there's some games where he's a little harder to find, to use that line. That's pretty common. So I really like the player, but I would agree with scouts that I spoke to that have some concerns, a little bit of concern over some of the consistency issues. And he will not be returning to Erie. He's moving on to Michigan next year, so they know his development path going forward. And that was what pick? That was 25th. So wouldn't shock me if he made it to there, but it also wouldn't shock me if he went before the 20th pick. So we'll find out again in a few days where he's going to end up. Okay, so the 26th pick, we are back to Nashville again, and we are back to Christian to make this one. He's in deep thought.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Colin Potter. I think with Potter, I think Nashville, you just need everything. I don't think there's a clear needs pick. I think you just take who you think is the best player. For me, that's at this spot. For me, that's Potter. You get a guy that probably top 3 skater in the draft. You bring a lot of speed. You got skill. Nashville, you do need centers. It's questionable if he sticks at center, but at least you're drafting a center there. Just another forward that can play in your top 9. I mean, 3rd pick of the draft. I think it's a good pick for Nashville at that spot.
I think they would probably be pretty pleased if they got Potter at 26. I don't think it would be shocking if he made it this far, but I think he will probably go off the board for this pick. Maybe just a little bit sooner than this. Anybody want to chime in on him? Next selection?
Well, we talked about they needed centers. If Colin Potter went to Nashville, they would definitely try to see if he could stick at center. Unquestionably, they would see if they could get that done, because that would really help accelerate aspects of what they need. But it makes a lot of sense because they've been heavy, as we talked about previously there, and with Potter now, like they need. We talked about dynamism. They need game breakers. When Potter is on all cylinders, he can open up a game. He can break open a game, and he can be that individual creator and that highlight reel that Nashville really needs.
He brings a lot of pace to the game, So I like the pick. So we are up to the 27th pick, which is the Washington Capitals. I think it's interesting that Brad ended up with this pick. So we are back to Brad to make this pick at 27th overall.
Okay, so last year they took Hudson and Mugli, because I know for a lot of you watching this, why is Cam Reed still available? What's going on here? But I don't think Reed makes a lot of sense for Washington, and admittedly we're a bit lower on Reed, so that's a bit of our thinking process there. They have no problem drafting out of Russia, and it's too tempting because I want to see it happen. So we got to go with the mutant Daniil Prokhorov. We're going off the board a bit. This kid has a tremendous amount of potential, but he needs a whole lot of time, and he needs to be in the right system to give him that time. For my money, pound for pound, I think the Hershey Bears are the best AHL development system in the world. Washington knows what they're doing. They're one of the teams where if they draft something we don't like, we have to double look and be like, uh-oh, this might not go our way. They've had some unbelievable success in recent years. The Protas brothers look phenomenal. The elder Protas brother there is very similar size to Prokhorov, so they've just developed a player with similar characteristics and a similar toolkit, though Prokhorov is faster at the same age. So it's one of those situations where they've drafted so well in recent years, and they have so much already that's in their system and going, that they can afford to give Prokhorov the right time so that he can develop the right way. And if they can get him into this league before Tom Wilson retires, and you have Prokhorov and Tom Wilson going simultaneously, that is an incredibly scary yet enticing package to deal with. So a little bit off the board, but we're going to go with Prokhorov.
Man, they be so they have so many big forwards. Tom Wilson, the Protas brother, like they're humongous. And then you have Prokhorov. If he somehow figure things out, because he's probably the most entertaining player in the whole draft to watch. Like, he's so fun. It's just like there's a lot of I wouldn't call them red flag, but there's some part of his game that are very questionable. In the playmaking being one of them. So, but if Prokhorov actually becomes better at just with his playmaking and using his teammate a lot more, he's a very interesting package. So he would he like he does fit what Washington looks for. Like, Washington not afraid to draft like those big forward, like the second Protus brother last year, probably the steal of the draft. Matiko from the Q was another big kid. So yeah, the Prokhorov pick could make sense. A bit of a reach based on where we have him, but this is a mock draft, so it doesn't matter where we have guys.
Yeah. So just for fans out there, this is a 6'5.5", about 220-pound winger who can really score goals. He is large, but he is not a huge fan of passing the puck. Is a good way to describe it. He has about 15 assists. I watched them all and was kind of laughing to myself because about 13 were accidents, where he was really not trying to get an assist, but he got an assist. So he is going to need some development. Brad did a good job explaining why that might be a good place for him to go with Washington, thinking ahead and the success they have had developing players. And if they can develop this player, they will get a steal at that pick. Based on our ranking, we think it's a little more high risk to actually be able to develop this player to a point where you would take him at that selection with the risk involved and with what's on the board. But I thought I would throw in 2 cents here, since we might not be able to talk about him Friday night. Okay, so that was Washington 27. We up to the Winnipeg Jets with 28th overall pick, and we are back to Jérôme Bérubé to make this selection.
My pick for Winnipeg at 28 is Jacob Rombach from the USHL. 6'6", deep, has like playoff value, smart, poise, will be a good skater. Just needs some time to get stronger in college. He's going to Minnesota, I believe. So he's going to a good school, good hockey program. So he's going to be in college for at least 2 years, maybe 3. The Jets can be patient with him, but he's, we think, we have him ranked 19, so we think he's going to be a really good shutdown defenseman in the NHL. And guys, a 6'6" version of that is pretty hard to find, and I think he makes sense here for Winnipeg at 28.
Actually, just looking at it, is he our best available? I think he is, right?
Limatov is.
Oh, Limatov. Okay,
Yeah.
So our second, well, they wouldn't take a Russian. It's rare. So they have taken our best available, I think, quite a few times. So that would be actually pretty interesting if they took Rombach. I thought you were going to choose between Bristevitz and Rombach, and you went Rombach. So, big fan of the player. I think if you get Rombach at the 28th pick, that's I'd go home pretty happy on the Friday night. Anybody else want to chime in on Rombach? Christian, your area?
Yeah, the Jets usually have bigger teams. Rombach's 6'6", so he plays into that. Just a really solid defenseman, and he just makes your team harder to play against. He's not physical, but he takes up a lot of space and just makes it hard on the skill players of the other team.
Anybody else?
Yes, he is not, and I repeat this for all of you listening, Jets fans, I know what you're thinking. He is not Logan Stanley. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, Logan Stanley was a pick. They've made a lot of picks I really liked. Logan Stanley was a pick they made that was not a player that I liked. Anyway, so that is the 28th pick over and done with. We will see what they will do with their pick on Friday night. So we are up to the 29th pick, and Carolina is on the board, and it is J. Brad to make this pick.
Yeah, my final pick, I believe here. Tough choice between two guys for me. I know Carolina's not really scared to draft some Russians, so our top guy, Kirpin Limitov, is an option. But I'm going out of my area. I'm going Benjamin Kindle out of Calgary with the Hitmen there. I've been a big fan of this player all year, as the guys can attest to, even when I had to argue with everybody about this player. Intelligent, competitive. He's got some skill. Small, not a very good skill. Carolina's not afraid to take those. They've done that in the past. So I do think this fits them well with how they draft. But also just a solid player here. Really thinks the game well. Despite the poor skating, he ends up in position a lot because he thinks the game very well. He's farther ahead than a lot of the other guys on the ice. Good skill, plays the point on the power play, and very competitive. And for a smaller guy, he's got to compete. So with that compete, he definitely has the drive to make it to the NHL. But the smaller the can skate is going to hold him back. So we'll see if he can work that up and make it onto the Hurricanes roster.
I mean, he does fit a bit what the Hurricanes look like. The only drawback to his game is his skating. The rest is he's smart. He can really shoot a puck. He can really pass a puck. He competes his ass off. It's just the skating size combo is just like, ugh. So if he can work on that, and the Hurricanes can help improve that, like he might be a really good player, like a really good top 9 forward in the NHL. So he does fit a bit what I look at what the Hurricanes have done in the past 4 or 5 season at the draft. Guys like Kindle tend to be drafted by the Hurricanes often. The only difference is he doesn't have a Russian passport. So that's a bit of a difference. But yeah. So anyway, I think it's a good pick here for the Hurricanes.
He reminds me a bit of Felix Ungerstorm, who they drafted. Smart, small, needed some time developmentally with his skating, but extremely well-rounded, very intelligent. That's something they usually look for. So I think he fits that profile well.
Okay, we will move on to the next pick. It is 30th overall, and the San Jose Sharks are back up, and Christian is back up to make this pick.
Well, you got a ton of top end forwards if you're San Jose now. You got to start building up your defense. There's 2 names I'm looking at, but last year they took Celebrini from BU. I'm going back to BU with Sacha Boumedian, another puck mover for them. You're hoping he can play in your top 4. You got Sam Dickinson on the left, and then you're looking at Boumedian, hoping he can play behind Dickinson and start to build out your defense. So I'm going Sacha Boumedian here.
All right, for everybody watching, we have Boumedian ranked 33rd overall, so he is just outside of our top 32. That is available for free on our website. Anybody want to chime in on that one, Jerome?
As Christian just mentioned, like the BU connection here. Their GM is a former BU guy, so I think there's some connection here that can be made with Boumedian, and he's also a guy who improved this season. He got better. I think that could be a pick here that makes sense for the Sharks at 30.
All right, we will move to the 31st pick. It is the Philadelphia Flyers picking yet again, and Brad Allen is playing GM for this pick.
Yeah, I mean, Philly has, I think, the most picks in the top half of the draft. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that means that they can take some risks. And we all know Briere was a sensational smaller forward in his own right. And so he has no problem taking small forwards, and you might as well take one with an amount of dynamism that's extremely rare. Pound for pound, probably the best talent still available in this class, and that's Cameron Schmidt. They can roll the dice on Schmidt. He's fast, and if you look at what they're building down the middle there, Lutsenko is also very, very fast. Lutsenko is a primary playmaker. Lutsenko is a defensive monster. Cameron Schmidt is not a defensive monster, and Cameron Schmidt is much more of a primary scorer. So in terms of chemistry and trying to think it out, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to take a high-end gamble. You look at Philly this year, they don't score very often. They need pure goal scorers. They need something that makes sense in terms of being able to put pucks in the back of the net. So I'm going a little bit off our board, but going with Cam Schmidt.
35th on our list, despite every battle I could wage to not have him quite that high. 47th overall on Bob McKenzie's list released today. I think I'll leave that as my comment on this pick. Anybody else want to talk about Brad's selection here?
Yeah, another guy we kind of talked about going here throughout the year. We talked about him going to a team with multiple picks, Philly, a team that could take a little bit more of a risk. And like Brad said, there's a little bit of that connection with Danny Briere there. Brad also mentioned defense not very good. It did improve as the season went on. Actually, I think we all kind of agreed that as the points kind of went down with Schmidt, we all kind of liked him a little bit more. I think the playmaking got better, especially if you look through in the playoffs. I thought he was a better playoff performer. Although this is coming from me, not a big fan of him overall. But again, defense got better. There was overall improvement with this player from what we saw from the beginning of the season to the end. And if you're Philly at this slot, sure, Cameron Schmidt's a smaller player, but with the speed and the improvement, not a bad pick for a team with 3 first.
I was waiting for that pick. I was like, Brad's gonna find a way to put Cameron Schmidt in the top 32 here in this mock draft. Not surprised. Boom bust type player again at this point. Although Philly's starting to get a lot of smaller player, so it's not how I would build my team. So you have Michkov as a smaller player, but Michkov is awesome. I would try to surround him with some bigger player. But Martin was a pick before that, and Vinsagi. So I guess that does the job a bit here for adding a bit more size. But yeah, Cameron Schmidt, probably the most popular conversation we had all year about any player was about Cameron Schmidt. So there you go, 31st overall.
Yeah, wide range of rankings on our personal list for that player. Okay, so the last pick of the first round is held by the Calgary Flames, courtesy of the Stanley Cup champions, and Jérôme is making our last pick of the night.
Yeah, so I'll go with a defenseman from the WHL, from the Portland Winterhawks, Max Seneca, via Czechia. A guy who really improved as the year went on. 6'5", right defenseman, skates well enough, smart. The defense really got better in the WHL. Offense is a bit it's okay. It's not going to be his bread and butter at the NHL level, but his defense will be, and anytime you can get your hand on a 6'5" right D that can skate well enough to keep up in the NHL, I think those are never a bad pick. And he's my pick at number 32.
For the sake of thinking that somehow, some way, William Horkoff is going to go in the first round, we'll say that would have been the 32nd pick without doing any legwork on my investigation at all, other than somehow, some way, I think Horkoff's the late riser and is going to find a way to go in the top 32. And with that, we have been through all 32 picks. Anybody have some final words, thoughts on any craziness, how this turned out, surprises? I guess biggest surprises. Who's our top ranked player who didn't
Limitov.
get picked? Limitov, which
Yeah.
doesn't shock me. Obviously, a Russian. So after that, I guess some guys. Bristevis didn't go, correct? We have him 27th. I think that's Stockselius. Yeah. And then Gastrin.
Yeah.
So most of our top 32 went off the board, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising since we're doing the mock. But we are trying to sway it towards what we think will happen rather than the picks we would make, obviously. Or I shouldn't say we, because I didn't even make a pick. But that is all 32 picks. Any of you have any final words?
Pretty interesting to do as a group. You know, we have all. I mean, we work together this season, but we do have like different opinions. So the picks are a bit different. Also, like we don't have. You know, someone makes a pick, and you have to make the pick like 30 seconds after. So not much time to think about it. So you have to, you know, be a quick thinker about it. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And you know, I look at the top of the class here, like Brad going with McQueen. Like it doesn't take much to like
throw a wrench in things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a pick. That's not a pick Brad would have made. He was doing his best legwork for what Chicago might do. We can all debate whether or not we agree with it. That's not the point. The point is that's not who Brad would have made at the third pick overall. Conversely, Brad made the pick at 31 overall that he would have taken.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's an overlap depending on the player and team. But I think the main thing to state to everybody is like when it comes to, you're going to see tons of consensus now. Bob's list just got released. I think this draft is wide open. I think that this is probably like, again, we exist within our schemas of what we talk about as a group and what we've seen and how we evaluate and think about certain players, which is obviously shown here. But the truth is, I think once you get past 14, 15 in this class, all bets are off. I think this draft, I think there's going to be a lot more Roger McQueen wrenches thrown into this than we've shown here. This is going to be a wide open class. It might be a little bit, it might take maybe a bit of time, but like for sure day two, once pick 33 hits, all bets are off. This draft is about to explode open. We're going to see it's all over the map. It's going to surprise every one of us.
I think mid first. I think mid first is going to go a bit crazy after like get to the Vancouver pick at 15. I think if the top 14 goes, like it seems like every rankings that I've seen has the same player in the top 14, or like even us like doing the mock draft tonight, like. We're trying to predict what, you know, those teams are going to do, but we still pick 14 of our top 15 without, you know, looking at it. You know, this could happen at the draft because the depth in the first round is like, you know, it might make Friday night very fun because you might have some picks where you're like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. So I think it's going to be a fun draft, but a few headache I think some team will have depending of, you know, what happens before them.
What about trades? You guys think there's going to be trades? I mean, every year it seems like,
please.
The media is like, there's going to be a ton of trades, and then you know, there's a lot of letdown. I think there might be a few. I don't think it's going to be crazy, but we'll see. Again, it's hard to predict because I think some of those trades. They happen when it's a reaction to something that wasn't expected, you know, and all of a sudden you've got a different scenario thrown at you and you can go, holy crap, we got to trade up. We got to try and get up, or all our guys are gone. You know, we've got this group of players ranked evenly. We're going to get one of them. Let's trade back. So those things aren't necessarily all planned out now. It's reaction to a live draft unfolding. So that will be fun to watch. But I think the top 10 is going to be interesting in which order they go. Everybody's got the same players, but which order they're going to go, I'm very curious on the guys I see a lot in Brady Martin and O'Brien. Where are they going to go? As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be shocked if either of those two were fourth. But will Utah even have their pick? Will they trade? If I were them, I would keep it. You won the lottery to go up, grab one of these top guys. But a lot of interesting stuff ready to unfold. Any of you guys' thoughts on the trades or anything else that you think might happen? Obviously, you've got not just trading up and down the board, but trading for an actual player, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty James Haggins. A lot of connection are being made with the Islanders if they can trade. There's like rumors of Noah Dobson getting dealt. If they can't, get a contract done, he's a UFA in 1 year. A lot of people in with the Islanders, their fan base are really really pushing to get James Haggins. So maybe there's a trade in the top 10 that gets the Islanders back with a top 10 pick, and they can pick Haggins. I think that would be a really popular move in Long Island. So that could be fun. But I'm pleased. Tons of trades. I want Friday night to be crazy. So
I actually like the daytime trades leading up. So there's some stuff going on as you leading up to the evening. Just to remind everybody, if you've watched this long, you are officially a draft nerd and you love this stuff as much as us. So we will be doing our own little draft show. Basically, follow along, watch the draft with us as we react, and we will throw out some tidbits and our thoughts on the players as they come off the board.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we wrap it there? We're about an hour and 40-ish minutes, maybe a little on that. And we will have what else coming out? We've got, as we record this, we got part 2 of the top 32 tomorrow morning. This mock draft will be released, and then we'll do the live show. I think that's it for the week.
Maybe a dark horse video if me and Brad can find some.
We'll bring Mark along, everybody. We'll drag him. Don't worry.
So we will. We'll see what else. I've also been working on another little quick video that will go up if I ever get around to finishing it up. It's been a nightmare to put together. But that's it. We are riding the heat wave all the way until Friday, folks.
All right.
Okay, everybody have a good night, and we will end it there, and we will see you live on Friday night.